What's up everyone? Welcome or welcome back to the Marketing Nomad YouTube channel. I am the Marketing Nomad. Alrighty, so I thought today we could sit down and talk a little bit about what I mean when I say mine is an intuition-led business. Before we get into how I show up for my business and why I believe it is an intuition-led business, let's first talk about intuition, alright? It is that gut feeling. It is that nudge in your tummy. It is, sometimes it can come through your mind as well, but it is what people sometimes call the sixth sense, where it just nudges you, or you probably don't have proof of it in your 3D, in your surroundings, but you just know. It's the knowing, all right? And it is subtle, it is soft, it helps you sometimes in certain situations. It helps to protect you. I strongly believe in the power of intuition, all right? Now, if you want to talk about it from a subconscious point of view, for me, I truly believe that, and there are studies that have kind of talked about this as well. I do believe that the intuition is what your subconscious mind has actually processed, but your logical mind hasn't necessarily caught up with it just yet. All right, so I strongly believe in the power of intuition. And when I say mine is an intuition-led business, it means that my decisions account for my intuition. My intuition is taken into consideration when I am making decisions. Yes, there are strategies that I involve, there are goal settings, there are actual stuff that I sit down, write, I get to it, I implement all of those, absolutely. But in this process, I do not discard my intuition. If something feels off, I don't need proof for it. I am abandoning that. I am figuring out a way that makes me feel good, that makes that intuitive hit for me say, all right, thumbs up, everything's okay. Now, this can come in different ways. For example, if we want to take the most recent example on my end with respect to the pricing, and if you haven't watched that video, you can definitely do so. I'll put the link in the description box below. But I went through a phase, like it was like a good 3 months, where I just knew that I had to raise my prices, and something was off in the current pricing of my services at that point in time. And that was just an intuitive hit. To be very honest with you, the growing frustration, it was starting to come to me about my prices not being, the output not being equal to the input, and that discrepancy, and realizing that I was working against myself with respect to my pricing. But the first kind of nudge that came through was my intuition, and thus began the process of maybe even starting to understand why that intuitive hit was coming through, that the price was not aligned, or it was time for me to raise my prices. And it started off as an intuitive nudge, and I did not ignore that. I took that into consideration, and then I started finding proof for it. I started to dig deeper. I started to strategize it. So that was one example that I have where my intuition is always taken into consideration when running my business. If something feels off, like for example, if I wake up today and I've kind of put 3 tasks on my list, but something feels off about the second one, I feel like I need to wait, or it's not the right time to take on the task, I listen to my intuition. I don't try looking for evidence at that moment in time. Sometimes, yes, you do need to look for evidence. You do need to wait for maybe your logical mind to catch up, and in that meantime, you probably need to look for data. You need to look for more information. But I have come to a point, this is 6 years in the making, I have come to a point where I just know if it is an intuitive nudge, then there is something meant for me to focus on. I am meant to look into that. I am meant to consider it. Whether there is proof at that moment or in time or not, I will pause and I will wait for that proof, or I will start searching for that proof. But to make my decision to pause, I don't need proof at that point in time. That is what I mean when I say it is an intuition-led business. It is not that I am making decisions willy-nilly, like I'm just like waking up one day and then deciding. No, that's not what I mean. I mean that my intuition is an integral part of the decision-making process. And if something feels off, something feels off. I don't question it. If something feels right, I again don't question it. Yes, I later further on support it with strategies. I further kind of build upon the layer, but whatever is the first intuitive hit, I do not question it. I feel like at one point in my life, I have been very intuitive, like right since I don't know, like, right, since I was a child, you know, there were certain things that I knew and it would happen. So I've had time and again proof that my intuition has always been there to protect me, so much so that today I don't question it at all. If it just comes through as an intuitive nudge, it just means that I have to pause. And for my business in particular, I need to maybe find a little bit of proof. I need to kind of reorient if something's not going right and I feel it in my soul, I feel it in my, like it's an intuitive hit. I just listen to it. All right, I just listen to it. And in my personal life, I don't go looking for proof. I do want to say that's the main difference between the two of that. In my personal life, in relationships, or in my everyday life, if I get an intuitive hit, I don't go looking for proof. I'm just like, yeah, okay, it's fine. It's just information. It's just for my information, and I have that information. However, for my business, because it is an intuitively led business, I start looking for proof. The nudge or the intuitive hit is a sign that you need to start looking for proof why this isn't working out for you, or why this is the aligned course of action, or why you need to pivot at this point in time. So for me, that's the difference. That's how I show up very differently in the past. For my personal life, all right, every time I would get an intuitive hit, and I used to get them, like I do get them a lot actually. Every time I get an intuitive hit, this is in the past, all right, this is probably in my late teens, early 20s, and I learned that lesson during that time as well. In my personal life, I would be like, okay, if there's a personal, like if there's a nudge, right, I would go start looking for proof for it. I would start going out of my way to find information, to collect information, and that would always backfire on me. All right, so I learned pretty early on, like I think in my early 20s, that if you have an intuitive nudge, don't question it. Just keep it as for your information kind of, like just keep it at the back of your mind. It's just there. That is information that's there. So when I started my business, I mean, again, a lot of decisions that I was making, I could feel it, I could feel the intuitive nudge. But then because the lesson I'd learned in my personal life was don't find any proof for it at this point, at this point in time, or just like don't dig deeper into it, just keep that as for your information. I kind of applied the same rule to my business, and then that backfired on me. And that's when I realized, okay, hey, this is an intuition-led business, so it has to be backed up. Like your intuition has to be backed up by strategies or by proof. However, take that as a sign that you do not have proof at this point in time, and that's okay. But now's where you get started on working, collecting information, collecting data that you need. The intuitive hit is a starting point for your business, for your decisions with respect to your business. However, in your personal life, it's just more of a for your information. You put that in a suitcase, you put that at the back of your mind, and then you just keep that in awareness, and it's there to protect you. Even your intuition for your business, it's there to protect you, but that is the starting point for you. It gives you the hit, the intuitive hit, and then based on that, your next step starts to come through, or because your logical mind hasn't caught up to it, it just means you need more data, you need more information, you need more backing for that. So that's kind of the primary difference of how I use my intuition for my personal life or other areas of my life versus my business. So it is an intuition-led business. However, there are strategies to back it up. There is always proof to back it up. And if I don't feel good about something, I listen to it. I do not discard my intuition. In fact, my intuition is very, very important to my decision-making process. And if I'm implementing something, all right, for example, I've created the strategy, so on and so forth, and then I'm implementing it, and something just feels off about it, or I feel like, okay, maybe, I'm not feeling okay about this. I feel like I need to pivot a little bit. I listen to that. And then I first do it. Whatever it is, if I have to pivot, if I have to stop doing it, I first listen to my intuitive hit, and then I start collecting information, and then I pause, and then I was like, okay, I need more proof for this. Let's figure out what that intuitive hit actually meant. How do I dig deeper into that? How do I back that with more proof so that I can strategize things for my business and strategize my next steps for my business? So it's not that decisions are made willy-nilly. I really want to put that out there. It's just that that my intuition is an integral part of the process. What intuitive hits I get, they are not discarded. And in fact, most of the times, to be very honest with you, my intuitive hits are the starting point of me strategizing or pivoting or making decisions for my business, because that is a signal that you need more information about this, something's not right, or you need to pivot at this point, or you need to do this, but you need to find more proof. So I take that more to be a signal that something needs to change at this point in time, or I need to pause, but I also need to get more information to back that, or to understand what needs to pivot, or what needs to change, or what needs to be paused, or what am I doing right, and how can I keep going with that. All right, so that is what I mean when I say it's an intuition-led business. And so far, I've been doing this for about 6 years now. I have to tell you that every time I have listened to my intuitive hit, it has worked wonders for me. Every time I have maybe overlooked it, or maybe my anxiousness or my panic has overridden my intuition, yeah, I have struggled. It has backfired on me. I have realized that I need to calm down and tap deeper into my intuition. And that's also a part of the process. Like for me, connecting with my intuition, it is very much part of my business strategy. I have to tell you this, because every time I'm panicking, every time I'm anxious, every time I'm not in an aligned energy, I cannot connect to my intuition. Your intuition is very, very soft. It is a very soft voice that comes through, whereas your anxiety or your panic, the anger, the frustration, all of those are very, very loud noises in your mind, and they tend to override, or they tend to overshadow your intuition. So for me, a very big part of my process, the me time that I have, it is to calm myself down, for me to connect deeper with my intuition. That's part of my business strategy, to connect deeper with my intuition, for me to understand what are the signals and the messages that are coming through my intuition, maybe signals that my body is also trying to give me about certain aspects of my business, so on and so forth. So it is part of my business strategy. It is part of my business decision-making process, and it is an integral part. And I do spend time connecting with my intuition. It's a very, very intentional effort that I make in order to build a healthy connection with my intuition, in order for me to hear my intuition when it comes through. Right? And that by itself, I do feel it is a skill. It is something that you need to keep honing it time and again, because there are going to be new things that are coming in your energy field, or even in your 3D view. So I feel like sometimes you can kind of spiral, you can kind of panic, can kind of become anxious. There's nothing wrong with it. It does happen, but you have to be intentional about coming back to your center, or bringing your focus back to yourself, rather than maybe the anxious thoughts or the panic. And so I do spend quite a bit of time reorienting myself every time I am in that energy. I spend a lot of time, just sitting in silence, just being with myself, just hearing all my thoughts, whatever they may be, whatever wants to flow, not really engaging with them, but just watching them flow, and be who they are. My thoughts, just let them be. And that's also another great way to actually start connecting with your intuition. Silence helps. Just being with yourself, just sitting in silence with yourself, allowing your thoughts to flow, allowing that energy to kind of come out of you, so that you can center yourself, so that you can balance yourself if you are in an anxious state. And this has helped me a lot. If I'm very anxious or I'm panicking, I don't make any decisions at that point in time. For me, the voice in my mind is usually screaming at me when I'm anxious or when I'm panicking. And so that's how I know, okay, well, if you're screaming at me, the voice, you're screaming at me, it means we're not in the right state of mind to make any decisions at this point in time, because this is not my intuition speaking to me. And so I allow those voices or the thoughts to keep running, kind of exhaust the thoughts. I just allow them to be. I don't suppress. I don't tell myself, oh, you're not supposed to feel anxious, you're not supposed to panic. No, I don't tell myself any of that. I just let myself be. Just allow my thoughts to run wild. If they want to scream, I just allow them to scream. I become a third-party observer of my thoughts. And oftentimes I feel like my thoughts just need a place to run, and then they calm down. It's kind of like kids, I guess, where they're just running, and then they're so exhausted, all of their energy is kind of out, and then they sleep, right? like pass out. I mean, it's not just kids, it's also me. It's also me as well, right? So it's the same with my thoughts. That's how I kind of identify with my thoughts as well. And so after they calm down, like they've exhausted their energy, I allow them to exhaust their energy, then they calm down. That's when I can hear my intuition, or because I feel like your intuition's always speaking to you, but it's just about how receptive you are. And how receptive you are can depend on your state. It can also depend on the other voices that might be overriding or just like screaming over your intuition. And your intuition will always be soft. And I've also heard this where they say that your intuition will speak to you in sentences, whereas your anxious voice or your panic voice will always be asking questions like, why isn't this happening? Is this going to work out? So on and so forth. Like that's the panic, that's the anxiety also that sometimes comes through, right? But your intuition, it will always speak to you in sentences, or it will just be a feeling that you can't really explain, but it will just be there. Right? And you need to be like consciously aware. You need to kind of develop, like I said, it's a skill. You need to develop that kind of self-awareness in order to tap deeper into your intuition. Though I do want to say that sometimes it can happen that you get so like you're maybe very emotionally invested. We all are, right? I mean, it's a business. For many of us, at least I consider my business to be my first baby, and I'm very, very emotionally invested in it. And there are certain times where I'm emotionally charged with respect to my business as well. And so in order for me to center myself, come back to balance, yes, it's important that I respect the fact that I am emotionally invested, and sometimes that can override my intuition, but that doesn't mean I have to that doesn't mean that it has to be the case. It can also mean that I'm cognizant of that, so I'm not going to make any decisions when I'm in that state, and then I'm going to bring myself back to my center, to my balanced state, and then understand what is going on within me, and then make decisions based on that. So I feel like that can be a process. Recently I was kind of struggling a little bit with respect to like my mental and emotional health with respect to my business. This was early Feb of this year. And I was struggling. It was quite bad for me, but I also knew that this meant I'm not connecting with my intuition, because there are voices that are overriding it, like panic and anxiety that was overriding it. And so I gave myself that leeway that, okay, we're not going to make any decisions right now because we're not really in the best state. So what we're going to do is we are going to spend more time meditating. We're going to spend more time journaling. We're going to counter the voices that are there, and we're going to calm them down. We're going to allow them to be, but we're also going to take our time. We have all of these tools at our disposal. We have the resources. We are knowledgeable. We know how to handle this. So we're going to go into overdrive. Like usually I journal maybe 2 or 3 times a week, but then during that entire, I think it was like a 2-week phase for me, where like things were really going out of hand for my business, and I really needed to it was a big toll on me as well. So I started journaling every single day. If I needed to journal twice a day, I would increase the volume of it. I would meditate for 30 minutes in the morning. I would meditate again in the evening. And then I'm also a Reiki master. So I would do like Reiki on myself as well to kind of shift the energy, to make sure that I'm okay. I kind of ramped up with that. So there's a lot of things that I do on the back end in order for me to connect with my intuition. And I wouldn't say that it's random. I would say that that is part of my strategy. That is very, very much part of my business strategy. When I'm not okay, ramping things up on the back end to take care of myself, to take care of my mental and emotional and physical health as well, in order for me to connect deeper with my intuition, in order for me to be centered and balanced. That's very, very much part of my business strategy. So that's what I mean when I say this is an intuition-led business. Yes, there are strategies in place. Yes, there are goals. Yes, there are action items. But the core of it all is intuition-led. And my intuition is never discarded. It is always taken into consideration. Even if I don't have proof in the moment, my intuitive hit is a signal that I need to start getting proof of whatever that information is. If something's not right, if I need to pause, if I need to go a different direction, if I need to pivot, whatever it is, my intuitive hit is a starting point for me to gather more information, gather more data, so that I can take steps appropriately for my business. All right. So this is what I wanted to share with you. This is very important to me, especially when it comes to my business. Like there's a lot that I do rely on my intuition. Absolutely, it is. And I feel like this is one of the traits that I have seen very, very common in business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. Our intuition is extremely powerful. Like, there's a reason why we do what we do. There's a reason why we are not following the norm of what is happening with other people or how other people are going about their life. There's a reason why we even felt that calling. That by itself was our intuition kind of letting us know that, not that path, but this path. So I feel like by nature, just by who we are as people, this is my opinion, this is what I've observed, I feel like by our nature, we are very, very intuitive. But I feel like the game-changing part of it is when you use that intuition as part of your strategy, when you use that, and not because, there's no proof, and that can kind of make you afraid as well. But when you start focusing on your intuition as, yes, this is what is going to set me aside from other people, because my intuition is my own and it is there to protect me. This is my business, so my intuition will not only help me, it will also help my business. I think when we start to recognize our intuition as a superpower that we do have, and time and again we allow it to prove itself to us, I think that's how we also develop a relationship with it as well. And I really feel like our intuition is our superpower. I feel that very, very strongly about my intuition as well. So I wanted to share that with you. I feel like we don't talk too much about it, like intuition as like a superpower for solopreneurs, business owners, and entrepreneurs. And I really feel like it should be at the forefront. I know that people say, oh, this is woo-woo, or oh, that is spiritual. So what? So what if you don't have proof of it at that point in time? There's something that's telling you that maybe you need to pivot, you need to look into something a little bit deeper. So what if there is no proof at that point in time? There's something telling you, and there's a reason why. It could be your past experiences. It could be your subconscious mind has processed things, but you haven't really caught up with it with your logical mind. It could be, yes, it could be energy. It could be, some people feel like it could be their higher self giving them a nudge, or their future self coming back in time and giving them a nudge. Why do you need proof to follow your intuition? I feel like a lot of people look down upon it because it's like woo-woo, or I just say, so what? So what if it is woo-woo? So what if it's spiritual? Maybe it is my higher self coming through and like telling me, or maybe it's my future self coming back and telling me that, hey, no, this is not going to lead us to where we need to be. So what? So what? However you want to perceive your intuition, or you want to perceive your intuitive hit, I feel like it can be at the forefront of your business, and that doesn't have to mean you suppress it or push it away, right? That by itself is like a lot of wounded energy. So for me, even today, if there's no proof, my intuitive hit for my business in particular is a starting point for me to start gathering proof. But I listen to it. I absolutely listen to it. If I have to stop, I just know I have to stop. The proof will come later, and that's okay. But at that moment in time, I listen to it. All right. So that's what I wanted to share with you. And I really hope that this video got you some kind of clarity, and maybe even makes you a little bit more cognizant about your relationship with your intuition, maybe allows you to work on it a little bit more. Like I said, it's a skill, so maybe even give time to yourself to develop your intuition, to maybe see how you can use your intuition as a superpower for your business, because it is unique to you. And I really feel like people who tend to choose a different path for themselves, I really do feel they are naturally very intuitive. Like, everybody has intuition, absolutely, but I feel like it's dialed up, especially for people who feel like there's a different calling for their life. All right, so this is where I'll leave you for today. If you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, because that tells you every single time I do upload a YouTube video. I'll catch you in my next one. Take care. Bye-bye.